Imagine this. The Civil War, it's finally drawing to a close. Victory feels like it's right there. And yet, the president, Abraham Lincoln, is apparently being haunted by this incredibly vivid dream about his own death. Did he really foresee his own assassination back in early April 1865?
It's an amazing story, isn't it?
That's what we're diving into today, this chilling account of Lincoln's dream and, well, all the questions it brings up about fate, memory.
Yeah.
Gosh, the sheer weight of leadership, too.
Absolutely. It's this really compelling intersection. You've got this huge moment in American history, right? The end of the war seems near, but it's shadowed by something so personal, so unsettling.
Yeah.
And here's Lincoln carrying, I mean, just imagine the burden of this fractured nation.
Yeah.
And he shares this really intimate, dark dream with Ward Hill Lamon, his friend, his former law partner.
Okay, so let's get into the dream itself. Lamon, he's the one who tells the story, right?
He is, yeah. That's our primary source for this specific dream narrative.
So Lamon says Lincoln described wandering through the White House, but it was silent, eerily silent. He ends up in the East Room. And you picture that place, normally full of life, receptions,
Right.
But in the dream, it's still dead of night.
Quite a contrast. The East Room, yeah, usually associated with public events, ceremonies, and suddenly it's the scene of, well, private grief in his dream.
Exactly. And there are mourners, a casket, soldiers standing guard.
The imagery is just, it's incredibly striking. It makes you wonder about the symbolism, doesn't it? What that shift might have meant in Lincoln's subconscious.
And then the heart of it. Lincoln in the dream asked someone in the crowd who was died.
Right.
And the answer he gets back is just stark, terrifying. The president, he was killed by an assassin.
Sure.
And the timing. This supposedly happened just, a few days before the actual assassination? April 14th, 1865.
Just days before. And that detail really gives you pause, doesn't it?
It really does. Was it some kind of genuine warning? A glimpse of the future? Or just, I don't know, coincidence? Or maybe something about the pressure he was under?
Well, and that's where it starts to get really complicated. Because, while Lamon's account is our main window into this dream, it's really crucial to remember when he shared it publicly. Not right away, not even close.
Oh, right. When was it?
Not until the 1880s. So we're talking nearly 2 decades after Lincoln actually died.
20 years. Wow. Okay, that definitely changes things, or at least adds a layer.
It does. It naturally makes historians ask questions. How reliable is that memory after so long?
Absolutely. And what about Mary Todd Lincoln, his wife? You'd think if he had had such a specific, terrifying dream, she might have, mentioned it, especially right after the assassination.
Exactly. And apparently she didn't. At least there's no record of her mentioning the specific dream immediately afterwards.
Yeah.
That silence, well, it fuels a lot of the historical skepticism.
I could see why. 20 years is a long time.
It is. And think about what can happen over time. Grief, for one. It can. Well, it can reshape memories, can it? People naturally try to find meaning in tragedy.
Sure.
And memory itself is just fallible. It's not a perfect recording. So maybe Lamon's recollection was influenced by the sheer enormity of what happened. Maybe the story got, let's say, a little more dramatic over the years.
Or maybe he genuinely remembered it that way, but his memory wasn't quite accurate. Or is it possible the dream, as he described it, didn't even happen quite like that?
Some historians definitely entertain that possibility, that maybe Lamon perhaps unconsciously embellished it or even constructed it later, maybe as a way to process the trauma. It really highlights a big challenge for us,
Yeah.
How do we handle these personal accounts, especially when they're filtered through so much time and intense emotion?
It's a really good point. That difference between, say, historical fact and personal memory, especially traumatic memory.
Right.
But still, despite all those doubts, the story of the dream, man, it's stuck, hasn't it? It's really part of the Lincoln legend now.
Oh, absolutely. It has become deeply embedded. And, while the accuracy of that specific East Room dream is debatable, what's really interesting is that Lincoln was known to be interested in his dreams. It wasn't just this one instance.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Well, we actually have accounts from members of his own cabinet. They recalled him sharing another pretty eerie dream, and this was on the very morning of the day he was assassinated.
The same day? What was that one about?
He described being on some kind of vessel, moving very fast, across a huge, dark, unknown body of water.
Wow. That sounds symbolic, almost like a journey.
It does, doesn't it? And apparently Lincoln himself felt it was significant. He apparently said he thought it related to the war ending, perhaps, but he seemed preoccupied by it. He felt it meant something, even if he couldn't pin it down.
So this wasn't just a one-off thing. He actually paid attention to his dreams, reflected on them.
It seems so. It paints a picture of Lincoln as someone quite attuned to his inner life, his subconscious. And think about it, leading the country through the absolute horror of the Civil War.
The pressure must have been unbelievable.
Unimaginable. It seems almost certain that his subconscious mind would be churning with anxieties, fears, maybe even these dark, turbulent images that surfaced in dreams.
So maybe the dreams weren't literal prophecies, but more like his psyche processing everything. The danger, the uncertainty, maybe even the possibility of his own death, given how many threats he received.
That's a very strong possibility. Whether you see them as prophetic or psychological, they definitely reveal a man who is deeply introspective, grappling with enormous burdens.
So come back to that big question. Did he foresee his death? Maybe the answer isn't a simple yes or no.
Probably not. If we think more broadly, how do we interpret these kinds of experiences? Dreams, premonitions. Throughout history, people have seen them as signs, right? Maybe warnings, maybe expressions of deep anxiety, maybe glimpses of fate, maybe just the brain working things out.
And for Lincoln, described as thoughtful, even poetic sometimes, carrying the weight he did.
Exactly. For someone like that, navigating such intense times, it's maybe not so surprising that his inner world would conjure up these powerful, unsettling images.
It adds another layer to him, doesn't it? Not just the strong leader, the great emancipator, but also this deeply thoughtful human dealing with immense fear and uncertainty.
It really does. And what's fascinating is how that East Room dream story, whether it's perfectly accurate or more of a reconstructed memory, how much power it still holds in American history.
Yeah, it's unforgettable once you hear it.
It really is. It sort of perfectly captures the tragic feeling around the end of his presidency, doesn't it? This image of a leader who maybe sensed his own end was near, but just kept going, kept doing his duty. It's incredibly poignant.
It is. So the dream, real or not exactly as told, it becomes part of his legacy anyway. It highlights the human side, maybe the fears, the convictions, maybe even these sort of visionary moments he might have had.
I think that's right. It adds this other dimension. And it makes us think about how we, as a society, process these huge historical traumas and how we build narratives around these iconic figures.
Yeah, these personal stories, even the mysterious ones, they make history feel richer, more human.
Definitely. Lincoln's assassination itself is such a defining moment, such a deep wound in American memory. Whether you see it through the lens of fate or forewarning or just terrible coincidence, the story resonates.
It really does. It makes me think of that quote of his, the dogmas of the quiet past are inadequate to the stormy present.
Powerful words.
Maybe that storm he talked about. Maybe it wasn't just the war. Maybe it reached into his own mind, his own sense of what might be coming.
That's a compelling thought, isn't it? That even someone as pragmatic, as grounded as Lincoln wasn't completely separate from those deeper mysteries of human experience, the whispers of the subconscious. Maybe these dream stories, even if we can't verify every single detail, maybe they act as a different kind of historical record, one that tells us something about the feeling of that time, the anxieties, and the profound impact of his life, and, tragically, his death.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Lincoln's dream. It's such a fascinating mix of history, memory, psychology, and our enduring fascination with things we can't quite explain.
It's been really fascinating to explore it with you. There are always so many layers to these stories.
Absolutely. And if you found this interesting, please do follow us for more deep dives into these kinds of historical questions. Share it with friends, family, anyone you think might enjoy it. And we always appreciate those ratings and reviews. Helps other curious minds find the show.
There's always more to uncover, always more questions to ask.
Indeed. And maybe the story of history isn't just in the official documents, is it? Sometimes maybe it flickers in these personal experiences, even in the strange landscape of our dreams.